And welcome back to Subculture. Well, there is a very, very special theatre production coming up at the Butterfly Club, a venue I know that so many of our listeners love to head along to. It is a new theatre work called You Can't Escape an Aussie Boy, and we thought to find out a little bit more about this great new piece of Aussie theatre, we would actually get the writer, producer, actor Shane Palmer on the phone to chat a little bit about it. Welcome to the program, Shane.
David, happy to be here.
Now, Shane, I was just having a read through the synopsis of this piece of theatre that you're putting together. But for all of our listeners out there, tell us a little bit about You Can't Escape an Aussie Boy. What's it about, and how did the idea come to you in the first place?
So, You Can't Escape an Aussie Boy is the story of Dan, Stephen and Tim, who are three good mates that kind of fall into taking over the Marydale Tigers Football Club in the fictional Greenbourne District Football League. And through bluster, enormous promises and a lot of hype, they fail upwards in this world of suburban footy. It's a bit of a dark comedy that kind of explores the heart of the Aussie boy and the perilous journey to kind of find his place in the world while trying to reshape it to his own better image of success and glory. So basically three idiots take over a suburban football club and fail upwards in one line.
So where did the idea come from for you?
Well, the idea came way back in 2019 when this idea struck me of what if Donald Trump took over a suburban footy club. I was kind of fascinated with the real dark side of the kind of charismatic leaders we've seen that get away with being completely awful just through this kind of hype and bluster that they stir up, and these really broad promises to people of, look, just sit back, you don't have to worry about anything, we're going to fix everything and make it all good again. And I thought, wouldn't it be fascinating to transplant that into the world of suburban footy somewhere in Melbourne?
Was there something that made you pick suburban footy? Like, is that something that you're passionate about?
I've always been fascinated by it. It's this kind of big, beautiful, I feel like somewhat undiscovered gem of passion, turbulence, and especially as a writer, there's a lot of scope that could happen or could kind of not happen. Obviously, Melbourne's very AFL-centric, and then the VFL sort of gets like a tiny glimmer of attention from that, and then a lot of what happens at a suburban level doesn't get anywhere near the attention it probably deserves, considering, just from a storytelling point of view, how much goes on there.
Yeah. It's interesting because I grew up in a country town and then came into Melbourne. So the town I grew up in, most people growing up there would know who the local footy coach is, but probably couldn't tell you who the mayor is at the time. And I found it was very different when you kind of came into the suburbs of Melbourne as well. There was some people that didn't even know that their suburb had a footy team. Is that the kind of thing that you're trying to tap into?
Yeah, definitely. I grew up in Gisborne, where the footy club was the be-all and end-all everything. Even like from a sort of business perspective, if you wanted to go anywhere, being involved in the footy club was such a huge part of kind of networking and connection and promotion, I suppose. And then I kind of thought, how could we explore it in the kind of bigger and badder leagues that are throughout the more urban areas of Melbourne?
Yep. So you mentioned that the characters are Stephen, Tim and Dan. Tell us which one you play and tell us a little bit about that character.
So I play Stephen, who runs for and becomes the president of the Marydale Football Club, who is a long-term member of the club and one of these guys that cannot find his place in the world and is kind of desperate to be like all the other blokes, and it just keeps falling short for him. Can't kick, can't get any attention on the weekend, and is just sort of very much like pushed to the sides. But he has a big mouth. He has a lot of ideas, and he's great at improvising.
Yeah.
And this avenue kind of opens up of, hey, maybe I could be the guy who kind of makes everything great again. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but why not? Let's have a crack at it.
Yep. You also mentioned like that political side to it as well, and you mentioned like leaders like Donald Trump. We kind of had a period there where right around the world we had Boris Johnson, Scott Morrison, Donald Trump, and they all seemed very, very similar kind of leaders in a sense. When you were sat down to work on the script, what kind of things did you want to take from their personality or from their career to add to this production?
Yeah, you definitely hit the nail on the head there. You kind of had these three guys all going at the same time that if you step back and look at it logically, you're like, how did they ever get elected? Like, what have they done? What tangible success could you be like, all right, great, this is going to translate exactly to holding office? And there's not a lot, but it's that kind of being in the right place at the right time, and then the um, wonderful, bizarre mystery of people failing upwards, especially within the boys' club. That to look at through the lens we're doing, I think is just it's really interesting to kind of explore.
Yeah, you're as a actor, you've been in so many different productions. You've been in everything from Snow White through to playing Dan Kelly. What is it like for you going in and doing this kind of production where you're also the writer and producer as well? Does that add a lot more to it for you?
It's really interesting. The point you hit where you're kind of intensely writing, putting it all together, making sure it actually works and is worth going and watching, and then you get this beautiful moment of almost sort of sending the boat out to sea, where you have to let go as the writer, and you can still sort of be involved from a background sense if people ask you questions, but it's a bit terrifying at first, but then you kind of let it go that like it's the actor's job to interpret the characters, and then it's the director's job to craft a show, and then your job to learn your lines and actually bring this character to life and work with other people. Which has, yeah, it's only been excellent so far. Got really, really lucky with the casting. Nathan and Jeremy that we've brought on in the other two roles, and it's been a lot of fun, kind of bouncing off each other, and then seeing the rough idea of kind of what you envisioned as a writer, and then the different interpretation that comes through, and often little bits that come through, and you think it's going to be the funniest joke in the show, and of course I didn't write it. This bloke's improvised it, but no, it's good.
As an actor as well, like we have a lot of actors who listen to this show. Of course, you're the role that most people would know you for was playing Felix in Neighbours. What do you find is the biggest difference between acting on screen and acting in a production on stage? Is there a major difference that you find as an actor?
The instant, not recognition, the kind of instant power you have to share it with people, I think is really special with theatre. I've always loved with screen that you can show the production or performance 1,000 different times if you want to. But there's the immediacy of walking out of the venue, and it's so wonderful to just have that instant, like, yep, this is a thing we did, and this is a show you can put on for family and friends and everyone else that kind of comes through, and it's happened right there and then, if that makes sense. Compared to waiting, 6 months. I had a bit in a Korean feature that was shot in Melbourne in January 2020 that I think is still being edited at the moment. So you have this kind of dissonance from it where you almost forget that you did it.
Yep.
Compared to theatre where it's like boom right away. And obviously you have to remember your lines completely rather than having a script supervisor come through and say, no, Shane, this is the line.
Definitely, yeah. I went along to Death of a Salesman the other night, and I couldn't believe just how many lines they had to remember. Like, I see a lot of theatre, but you forget how much work goes into it when you go and see a production like that goes for 3 hours. It's just, yeah, it blows you away about how people can remember lines for a 3-hour production.
I think, just to go back to your other question as well, the kind of joy of writing, producing, and acting in your own thing is when you're working with the text for nearly 4 years here, it's almost like a cheat code as an actor because you've done so much work and so much repetition that they're kind of halfway in by the time it comes to putting the pencil down and actually learning the lines.
Yep. Now,
which is massively helpful.
yeah. Now, of course, the other key people behind this production as well is you're working with director Riley Longworth, who's got an amazing career behind him. Tell us a little bit about Riley, why you went with him as director, and what he brings to the production.
So Riley is currently up in Sydney for South by Southwest, and he's got quite an extensive writing background, but writing for screen. And I've worked with him on a number of productions before. He was in the Kelly gang with us in Stringy Bark, where I played Dan Kelly. This years and years ago, and I'd never. I don't think he'd ever been definitely not as an adult, been in a stage production. And we caught up a few months ago now and kind of threw the idea out there. And he sort of, yeah. And then sort of built. And then of that first read through of the script and just instantly got exactly where it was and what it wanted to be.
Yeah.
And then, jumped on board as director, and the two of us have been kind of racing off with it ever since then. So I quite like working with people that good storytellers. I think that's the key to putting together a good show, rather than needing to have an extensive list of experience or kind of background. I think if you just click with people, then you get to play, and I think that's a real joy of this kind of theatre as well, is just get into kind of experiment, kind of explore a bit, and then just craft something that's as much fun to put on as it is to watch.
Definitely. And you're working with Jeremy Harland and Nathan Wright as well, who play Dan and Tim respectively in the production. Are they actors that you've worked with before?
No. So first time meeting them and working with them. And Jeremy is just graduating from Fed Uni out in Ballarat. So he is a busy man at the moment, which we're very happy to have him on board. And then Nathan has quite a bit of extensive theatre and a little bit of screen background as well. And we put out a casting call through a few pages on Facebook months ago now. And the two of them were sort of instantly at the top of the list. Nathan was one of those, he saw the headshot, was like, boom, that's Tim, which was really lucky. And then the self-tape he sent through had me in stitches. It was really good. He improvised a few little bits. Again, that's sort of like, that's going to be the best part of the show, you bastard. But really excited to work with them and kind of explore something quite different, I think, for both of them. They've especially for recent things they've done. Jeremy's just done a musical, and Nathan just did a quite heavy drama. So that, both looking to kind of dive into this world, which is good.
Awesome. Well, for all of our listeners out there, if you want to go and see You Can't Escape an Aussie Boy, it's on from November the 13th to the 18th, 7 p.m. each night at the Butterfly Club. We know you know where that is because we run into our listeners there all the time. But in case you don't, it's in Carson Place in Melbourne. And we'll put a link up on our website where you can grab tickets as well. But to finish off, Shane, what would you like to say to people who are thinking about heading along to check out You Can't Escape an Aussie Boy?
If you're looking for something that is a bit different, a little bit dark, but not doesn't kill you, I think it's a great piece of comedy to kind of explore a couple of worlds with theatre and footy, or theatre and sport, that often don't interact. It's going to be a different one, this.
Definitely. And then once again, for all of our listeners out there, you can go along and see You Can't Escape an Aussie Boy from November the 13th to the 18th at the Butterfly Club in Carson Place in Melbourne. And there is a link up on our subcultureentertainment.com website where you'll be able to grab your tickets.